In the shifting architecture of world power, two nations stand at a crossroads. One is ancient, beset by sanctions and surrounded by enemies. The other is rising, reshaping global norms and challenging decades of Western dominance. This is the story of China and Iran and why Beijing appears to be arming Tehran, not out of friendship but out of strategic necessity. Iran and China's relationship didn't begin yesterday. It stretches back decades, to a time when Tehran was isolated after revolution and war, and Beijing saw opportunity in forging ties with a country that stood against the dominant world order. China once supplied Iran with conventional arms, tanks, missiles, aircraft, even naval vessels during the 1980s and beyond. It also helped Iran build its own defense industry with technical expertise, dual-use technologies, and missile blueprints. But this wasn't about solidarity. It was geopolitical realpolitik, a recognition that a country like Iran could serve China's interest in a region dominated by US influence. Today, Iran stands on uneven ground. For years, Western sanctions and regional rivals have isolated Tehran. Its military has suffered, its economy strained, and its air defenses exposed, especially during recent conflicts with Israel and strikes that damaged key missile infrastructure. Iran's leaders know this truth. If they are to deter future attacks, they need capabilities, modern air defense, resilient missile forces, and robust technology that can survive outside the Western sphere. Russia once filled this role. It was Iran's primary weapons supplier, providing combat aircraft and advanced surface-to-air missile systems. But Russia's own challenges and strategic choices, especially after its invasion of Ukraine, have left Tehran looking for alternatives. And this is where China's quiet ascent comes into focus. Beijing doesn't rush into alliances, but it sees in Iran both risk and reward. On the surface, China avoids overt military entanglement, especially after recent regional conflicts. Officially, authorities refrain from dramatic weapons shipments in times of active war. Yet, behind the scenes, the relationship deepens, not just in economics, but in security. China is one of Iran's largest energy consumers, buying most of its crude oil and providing a financial lifeline to Tehran amid sanctions. Beijing has supplied critical military inputs, including rocket fuel precursors and guidance systems that helped Iran rebuild its missile arsenal. Chinese firms and technologies are reported to support radar and defense networks, especially anti-stealth radars and command systems Tehran now craves. This is not crude arms for oil bargaining, it is far more calibrated. China helps Iran reconstitute its deterrent without publicly signing treaties, without slapping crates-leveled weapons onto airfields. That is the genius and the danger of this alignment. So why would China, a global power with trade deals across the world, assist Iran's military? There are four key motives. Number one is countering US influence. Both China and Iran share an interest in diluting American dominance in global affairs. Beijing does not need wars, but it benefits from a multipolar world where US pressure cannot dictate outcomes. Supporting Iran, albeit discreetly, pushes back against Washington's unilateral hegemony. The second is energy security. Iran sits astride huge oil and gas reserves. China's economy still runs on imported energy. Keeping Iranian oil flowing, even through sanction-busting networks, is a strategic plus for Beijing. And the third is geopolitical leverage. Iran is geographically pivotal. It controls access to the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, through which a significant share of the world's oil transits. A weakened Iran threatens China's energy routes. A stable, fortified Iran can act as a counterweight to US forces in the Gulf. And the other is for testing regional balance. If China can help Iran build credible defenses, especially air defense and missile deterrence, it shifts the calculus of regional conflict. Israel, supported by the US, knows that stronger Iranian defenses raise the stakes of any future strike. China watches this dynamic closely, not to fight the battle, but to save the balance of power. This isn't World War II armament shipments. Modern support is tech, components and strategic enablement, missile propellant ingredients, radar arrays, advanced microprocessors, elements that make Iran's own defense industry stronger and more resilient. Beijing's assistance also includes intelligence cooperation, cybersecurity support, and helping Iran replace Western technologies with Chinese alternatives, making Tehran less vulnerable to foreign interference. This is China's version of arming a partner. Help them build independence, not dependence. But this strategy is not without danger. Beijing carefully balances its cooperation with Tehran against its broader global interests, including economic ties with the West and its effort to avoid direct military conflict. Overtly arming Iran in an active conflict could provoke sanctions or diplomatic reprisals. This is why much of the support remains indirect, dual-use materials, technical aid, economic lifelines, rather than black and white weapons transfers. The China-Iran relationship now looks less like two isolated nations partnering and more like a silent realignment in global geopolitics. Iran gets the tools it needs to survive and deter. China positions itself as a power capable of shaping regions far from its borders, not with fleets alone, but with strategic patience and economic leverage. And the United States, long accustomed to setting the terms of global security, finds itself adjusting to a reality where power is no longer announced with fanfare, but with quiet capability transfers, strategic investments, and influences that bypass traditional alliances. In the end, this is not just about weapons. It is about who gets to define security in the 21st century and whether the old rules still apply in a world tilting toward new centers of power. What makes China's move toward Iran truly unsettling is not the weapons themselves. It's the message behind them. China is signaling that American pressure no longer decides outcomes, that sanctions can be bypassed, that isolation is no longer terminal. By helping Iran stand on its feet, militarily, economically, strategically, Beijing is testing a theory that could reshape the entire world. That power no longer flows from alliances announced in public, but from capabilities built quietly, patiently, and out of reach. Iran becomes proof of concept. If Iran can survive decades of pressure, modernize its defenses, and deter attack, then others will follow. Other sanctions states, other challengers, other governments watching closely. For China, this is not about Tehran alone. It's about Taipei, it's about the South China Sea, it's about a future where Washington threatens but fewer listen. And for the United States, the dilemma deepens: escalate and risk wider war, hold back and watch influence erode.